Very good morning to everyone. Welcome to Sriram IAS. I hope I am audible to everyone. So guys, this is your Mission Mains series, where in this series we are covering all the important current affairs for mains. Me and Sanat sir are taking this series where I am taking international relations, polity, environment and ecology, and the Sanat sir is taking economics, science and tech, art and culture, and other miscellaneous portions of current affairs for the mains 2023. So this series is a continuation of what we are already doing in the past. If you remember that in the last 3 classes, we have covered international relations and especially bilateral relations. So we are straight away starting with the class. If you remember that what is the syllabus of GS2 for UPSC mains, there are 4 broader topics where international relations can be classified. The first topic is India and its neighborhood. Now in my first class, I have already explained what kind of relation that we have with our neighbors and what are the positive aspects of the relations that we have. And then we have also seen that what are the basic issues that we have with our neighbors. Like we have seen India, Nepal, India, Pakistan, India, China, India, Sri Lanka, all these major nations, and India, Bangladesh, and India, Afghanistan. So we have seen that what are the issues, how we are dealing and improving the ties with all these nations. Then guys, in the last class I have started with, that means the second class, we have started with just a second guys. So in the last class, we were doing what is India's relation with major powers. Okay, this was the last topic that we were doing, and in the last class I have done India-US relationship. Okay, in this class I will start with India-Russia relations. Okay, that how India and Russia relations have come up, what are the background, then what are the major issues that we have with Russia. And then guys, in this class we will be discussing some important major international organizations. All important international organization for the context of the upcoming mains, we will look into those organizations as well. So let us straight away jump to today's topic. We are starting with India-Russia relationships. Okay, so when it comes to India-Russia relation, India and Russia are considered to be a old friend. Okay, we have a very long friendship. This relation witnessed a transformation because in present context, where you can see India is tilting towards USA. On the other hand, you will be finding Russia integrating more with China. So Indian relation with Russia is transforming because of the emerging geopolitical scenario. And you know that even US and China are right now the present 2 poles of the world, the poles of power. So basically, as a result, you will see China and Russia, they are getting more close because of a common enemy, USA. Then guys, in many past summit, both the government have very aggressively highlighted that how these two nations are so close. Okay, what is the importance of India-Russia relationship? So, for example, you can quote in Sochi summit in 2018, which is Far East summit. There, it has been given the status of India-Russia has been given a special status. So, it has been quote unquote highlighted as special and privileged partnership. So India-Russia relationship is based on a very deep trust. Then we have a common foreign policy to have a multipolar world order. Both the countries, they work for having a multipolar world order. And then our areas of cooperation are so wide. Like we have a very good cooperation in military, security, nuclear energy, trade, energy requirements, etc. So let us see that what are the different nuances of India-Russia relationship. Now guys, before you are writing any question on India-Russia relationship in mains, you have to quote this treaty. This was a treaty which India has signed during the Indo-Bangladesh War, when there was a fear of America entering the war, and they have even entered. Their 7th fleet has entered Bay of Bengal to help Pakistan in Indo-Pakistan War of 71. So to counter USA at that time, what India has done, India signed a treaty of friendship, peace and cooperation with Russia. That means we both will believe in peace and tranquility, as well as we share a common friendship. So this treaty very recently in 21 has completed 50 years. Okay, so it is a 50-year-old treaty. So imagine that how these things have evolved. Then when USSR disintegrated in 1993, there was a new treaty that was signed, which was named as a new Treaty of Friendship Cooperation in January 1993. So you can quote both these treaties whenever you are introducing India-Russia relationship in your answers. Okay, then let us see that what are the areas of cooperation between India and Russia in different space. First, we will talk about defense. Now, when it comes to defense, by 2010, Russia is considered to be India's largest defense exporter to India. That means we were importing the maximum defense goods from India, or from Russia, sorry. So there were technology transfer, there were joint development, there were marketing of selling and export of equipments. Like for example, technology transfer means many equipments which are being built in Russia are transferred. How they are built, their technology is transferred to Russia, to India. Then there are many such areas where in defense that both the countries are having a joint cooperation, like the BrahMos missile. And Tabi, you will see that this BrahMos missile was a question in prelims. एक सीधा क्वेश्चन आया था BrahMos missile से, that if you know the basics of BrahMos missile, you can easily could have answered that question. Then both the countries, they are even creating a market for the jointly produced defense goods. Like both the countries are cooperating in developing nuclear submarines. For example, INS Ariant that India is using is a nuclear powered and a nuclear propelled submarine that is again built with the help of Russia. Okay, then if we account for arms import, even today Russia has a good share in Indian arms import. So 58% of the total arms that we are buying from Russia, and the rest are from other countries. So by till 2010 it was more than 70% that we were buying from Russia only, and after that we have expanded our defense imports. हमने बाकी देशों से भी खरीदना शुरू कर दिया. वी आर बाइंग फ्रॉम USA, वी आर बाइंग फ्रॉम Israel, okay, we are buying from France. Our cooperation, our defense cooperation has increased with other nations as well. Okay, so what is the other thing that we have bought from Russia? We share a strategic technology like S-400 missile defense system. India is buying this missile defense system. This is one of the most advanced air defense system in the world. Then both the countries are having a partnership in making different types of defense engagement. Like both of them are making BrahMos. Then the Russia has leased us the Akula class of submarines to India, and on these Akula class you will see that Project 75 of India is based. Project 75 is on Scorpion class, and Akula class submarine is Arihant, INS Arihant. So we have a engagement in these fields. However, Akula class, there is a much more contribution from, in Project 75, in Scorpion class, the contribution is from France. Okay. Then in BrahMos missile system, which is the world's fastest supersonic cruise missile, both the countries have become the partner. Then we have the partnership in Sukhoi. Then tactical transport aircrafts, it is similar to what we have from USA C-17 Globemaster. It is just a transporter. So very recently held 21st India-Russia summit, both the countries have confirmed their purchase of S-400 air defense system despite issues being raised by USA. Despite any issue being raised by USA. So in the last class we have discussed this, that one of the major issue with that we stand with USA is India's engagement with Russia, and USA has imposed sanctions on Russia. And you know, from past 2 days, Russia is again in the news because of the attempt of military coup happening in Russia. Okay, so from now things can change anywhere in the global geopolitics. Things can change anywhere, guys. Okay. Then one important fact is both the countries are involved in a tri-service military exercise. That means Army, Navy, Air Force of India is collectively doing an exercise with Army, Navy, Air Force of Russia. It is similar to what we are doing with America in Yudh Abhyas. America के साथ what we have a trilateral exercise is Yudh Abhyas. So we have done America in the last class. Okay, you can see the video in the playlist. Okay, then guys, the trade, what we can see about what we can write about the trade. Now when it comes to the bilateral trade, the bilateral trade is impacted during the period of 2021 and this financial year. It amounts to $8.1 billion, and whereas this is the import, whereas the India's export to Russia has hit somewhere around $3.3 billion in financial year 22, and import stands at $9 billion. So we are at a trade deficit with Russia. Now what is with the strategic economic dialogue? India and Russia have started strategic economic dialogue from 2018, where both the countries are engaging in 6 core areas of cooperation. Now what are the 6 core areas? Transport, infrastructure, agriculture, MSME business, then digital transformation, frontier technology, trade, banking, tourism, and yes guys, strategic economic dialogue. Other than that, there is a technological cooperation with Russia in space. Like we know that Russia is helping us in our Chandrayaan 3. Russia is helping us in our mission Gaganyaan, which is India's first human mission, human first space mission. Then India is also very each year India participates in the Eastern Economic Forum. Okay, this Eastern Economic Forum is basically the potential of the Eastern Russia, because Eastern Russia has so many resources which is right now untapped. So Russia wants to grow that area with the investments coming from different part of the world. And India is one of the major player and a major partner with Russia in the eastern part of Russia. Then guys, the maritime route. We are further building up the connectivity with Russia. Like if you have studied the north-south transport corridor, north-south transport corridor. This is a game changer for connectivity, especially in this region. Then other than that, we are also building maritime routes from Chennai to Vladivostok. Now Vladivostok is the easternmost most important port of Russia on the eastern side. So in a way we are developing connectivity with Russia from both the ends. The north-south corridor will go from Arabian Sea, from Mumbai to Iran, and then from Iran to Central Asian countries, and then reaching Russia via Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan. And from this side, we are also building maritime routes from state of Malacca, from South China Sea, East China Sea, and then reaching Vladivostok. So both the routes are becoming much faster. Like for example, this eastern route, we can reach Russia right now from Chennai in just 16 days. Okay, now India's import from Russia has increased 3 times during the Russia-Ukraine war. We have increased our trade, increased our imports, and especially one important commodity that we are importing is Russian oil. Okay, then guys, in terms of energy, what all contributions that we have with Russia in terms of energy? The first is natural gas. Now Russia has one of the largest natural reserves in the world as of now, largest natural gas reserves, and we are building many, like all the connectivity projects that I have explained to you earlier. These connectivity projects will help us to bring all the natural gases to India. And then Russia has also allowed Indian companies like ONGC Videsh. Now this is a company which is a PSU under ONGC. The main purpose of this company is to do the oil and natural gas exploration outside India. All the exploration that this country or this company does is outside India. Then in St. Petersburg Declaration, both the countries have agreed for joint exploration of hydrocarbons in Arctic region. It was a declaration that even helped to build your north-south transport corridor. Okay, then Russia has a pivot to Asia strategy, under which the Russia engages with the Asian nations. Now India's draft Arctic policy and Russia's pivot to Asia policy, both of these policy highlight the convergence of these two countries in more development in the Arctic region. Then the Northern Sea route will further facilitate the development of resources in the Arctic region. Then guys, in terms of nuclear energy, where Russia has helped India in terms of nuclear production, it is the Kundakulam nuclear power plant. This is being built in India with the help of Russian cooperation. And Russia is the only country, foreign country, which is at presently involved in nuclear energy production in India. Right now, there are many such projects which are as of now stalled. Like there is a project from USA. Okay, there is a project of USA which is we are not able to proceed with the project because of a very important issue, that is the Civil Liability Act. That means there is an issue that whenever there, or God forbids, if there is a nuclear leak that happens, in that case, who will be the responsible for that nuclear leak? Will it be the company which is working with India, or the India will be responsible for taking care of any kind of leak? So this Civil Liability Act is one of the issue in nuclear establishment in India. Then if we talk about the geopolitical convergence between India and Russia as of now, both the countries are working for a multipolar world. That means, what is a multipolar world? Away from a unipolar hegemony of USA. So both the country wants to come out from this multipolar world order, or sorry, they want to come out from the unipolar world order and they want to establish multipolar order. Then both India and Russia have started sharing this through various international corporations. Like two prominent corporations are BIMSTEC and SCO. By the way, this SCO is very important for this year. We all know the reason why, because just in a week's time, the annual SCO meeting will begin in an online format. Okay, however, right now all these nations are not coming to India, but the summit will happen in an online platform. Then on China and Russia, they continue to see China as a potential strategic adversary in future. Okay, because hence it is deepening the cooperation with countries like India, Vietnam and Indonesia. However, the USA's role in the global world order has brought Russia and China together. Okay, both of them are engaging at different fronts. They are, even China is supplying help, the military help to Russia. Okay, and then how Russia has helped India in past in the geopolitical convergence. When China was pushing the entry of Pakistan in SCO, Russia pushed the entry of India in SCO so that they can expand. So India can expand their Act East policy to include Russia. So this is what we can say, that Russia is a all-weather friend of India. All right. Then Russia has always supported India on various issues in United Nations Security Council. Whenever there is a voting, like a voting on JNK issue that has happened, it was blocked by Russia. Then to whenever there is a claim for the permanent seat, Russia supports us. Then when China was putting veto on many international terrorists, Russia was one of those countries that has put pressure on China to move with this order, that allowing many international terrorists to be declared as a global terrorist under UN, like Masood Azhar. Very recently, China has again banned one international terrorist, Sajid Mir. Okay, this Sajid Mir, India want to designate this person as international terrorist, but again China has put a hold in Security Council. This is just a weeks back. So this is what the geopolitical engagement that we have in with Russia. Then when it comes to the cultural relation, both the countries are carrying out many cultural exchanges. Like there are institutions, 20 Russian institutions that regularly teach Hindi to 1500 Russian students with the programs like Namaste Russia. Then there are many other languages courses that are taught there in Russia, and vice versa. You can even learn Russia in India. Now, all these things can happen because when both the countries are culturally together. Like, there is also one festival which is celebrated in Russia, the Festival of India in Russia. They celebrate this every year, where the people can enjoy the Indian music, dance, food, spiritual traditions, etc. Then, guys, in terms of space technology, what kind of relation we have with Russia? Like, they were the first which has helped us in our two satellites, that is Aryabhatta and Bhaskara. Then Russia has also provided their cryogenic technology to build heavy rockets in India. So presently, the GSLV that we are using, the geosynchronous launching vehicle, is presently using the technology of Russia only. Okay, like the other technology, the PSLV technology, is a kind of a technology that we have developed on our own. But this is the cryogenic technology that we were struggling in. Then both the sides cooperate in the peaceful use of outer space, because both believe in that we should have a peaceful use of outer space. However, a UN treaty also backs this. The UN convention signed in Geneva, it says that the space cannot be militarized. However, each country is building some or the other kind of space force. Like USA has announced their space force, and then many countries are also building weapons for the space, and even India is in this race. For example, you can mention here Mission Shakti. Yes or no? If you are aware of this fact, ASAT, anti-satellite test. So this is what the space cooperation that we have with Russia. Then they are also participating, or they helped us in launching the GLONASS navigation system, remote sensing satellites. They have also helped us in other societal application for the outer space. So there is a very good understanding between Indian space agencies and the Russian space agencies. Like, one important collaboration that both these countries are coming up with is the Gaganyaan. The Gaganyaan mission, which is India's first human mission. So even Russia is the one that will be helping us, because if you know your facts, Russia is the first country to send humans in space. Okay, and by the way, the first country to land human on moon was US, but the first country that has sent people to space was Russia. Can you tell me in the comment box who was the first scientist that has gone to the space? The first Russian who has gone to the space? Can you guys tell me in the comment box? Moving ahead, guys, what are the issues in the relationship? Now we will analyze. Now, whenever you are writing any question on mains, you need to analyze the issues as well as we have seen the areas of cooperation. Now we will see what are the areas of issues between both the nations. So first of all, we still have a very limited areas of cooperation. Like in the post-Cold War, India-Russia relations have become more transactional, and it is centered on just military cooperation. Other kind of relationship has been developed in last 10 years. So there was a huge gap between India and Russia relationship, and the reason were many. Like, even Russia was struggling with their own political crisis, like Russia is struggling even now. So guys, Russia, I believe, is a important topic. India-Russia relationship is also an important topic when it comes to the mains current affairs. Okay, because you know, the just 2 days back, from last 2 days, there is a new set of tussle that has started in Russia. Okay, so after this, the US Russia dilemma, the another issue that country like India face, that whenever we get close to USA on one side, Russia doesn't like it, and vice versa. Whenever we get close to Russia, US doesn't like it. So India struggles to manage or have a cordial relationship with both the nations in a way that their relation with the other country do not hamper. So this is known as the US Russia dilemma. Okay, like right now Narendra Modi is on a visit of USA, or was rather, he is right now in Egypt. So when these type of state visits happen, then it gets difficult for India to justify it to Russia. Okay, and then both the countries have, India and US have clearly said that it is just to bring the two democracies closer. There is nothing else that India is doing in in USA. But you know the reality. Ultimately, what is happening is we are signing all the next level of deals with USA, and then when Russia will be, kind of angry or anxious with this, then India, don't worry, India will engage with Russia very soon. Like next week, in the second to 4th of July, there is an online summit happening with Russia as a part of SCO. SCO summit will start. So this is one area. Then in terms of defense, what are the issues? Although Russia commands the maximum defense imports of India, but this is continuously declining. Like we used to, from 2010 to 2014, there was Russian share in Indian defense was 70%. So this dropping dependency of India on Russia, it is not liked by Russia. Imagine there is one shopkeeper from which you used to buy 70 rupees of 70 rupees of groceries every day, and then you start reducing and not buying the things from that same shopkeeper. Don't you think the other countries will like it? The same shopkeeper will like it? Answer is no. Then USA is imposing sanctions on Russia under CATSA Act, countering America's adversary through Sanction Act, the full form. So this act is also pushing Russia backward. It is pushing Russian companies backward, because the American sanctions are not allowing Russian companies to work globally. And then trade, how trade is an issue between both the countries. We still have a poor connectivity, because from the year 2000 we are trying to build this north south transport corridor, but something or the other hinders the construction of this corridor. Then there is lack of involvement of private sector, weak banking links. That means all these funds, trade, they do not get enough funds on time. And then cumbersome regulatory procedures like the custom clearances, the diplomatic clearances, all these things, they take time. इन सब में बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम लग जाता है, and because of this the trade becomes a issue. Then how Indo-Pacific region becomes an issue, because you know that slowly and slowly USA is gaining their presence in the Pacific Ocean, and with their presence, the most severe impact of this presence will be on China and on Russia. So, and on the other hand, India is also growing towards USA. So in this case, Russia is always concerned about that how the other countries will develop their foreign policy for the Indo-Pacific region. Like they say that Russian foreign minister Sergei Lavrov, they called Indo-Pacific as an artificially imposed construct. That means there is nothing known as Indo-Pacific cooperation, but it is just that it is being promoted by the Quad countries. One India and the other US, Australia, Japan, just to counter Russia and China. And then guys, terrorism. There are issue on terrorism because India is pushing for a comprehensive convention on international terrorism in United Nations, where India is pushing that we should have a common definition for terrorism at every place. But that definition of terrorism is right now, it is not defined very clearly. So both the countries are trying to come together so that we can come on a consensus on comprehensive convention on international terrorism. Other is US-Russia tension. Both the countries are fighting with each other directly or indirectly. So ultimately it is creating tensions for the other players. Now at present, what are the main reasons that US and Russia are struggling to have a good relation? Now the first blame that USA allege on Russia is Moscow's interference in US presidential election. Like if you remember, the email accounts of Hillary Clinton got leaked during the time of that election, during the time of Donald Trump. So from there, the relation between both the countries deteriorated. Then in 2014, Russia annexed Crimea. Like right now, Russia is capturing Ukraine. Russia has annexed Crimea, which is a part of Ukraine only. This was another issue between Russia and US. Then Russia supports the Syria's Bashar al-Assad, whereas the USA support or backs all the rebels in that country. So this was again a counter between both the two nations. Then Russia is supporting Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. Now Venezuela is just next neighbor to USA. And Russia is supporting the hardliner communist people there. Whereas USA, now these communist people, they do not like the USA's capitalist system, and they are always against it. And then there is a perceptual normative divergence on bilateral issues, like Russia is granting political asylum to the Edward Snowden, and the difference between Russia and West over the matters of human rights, over the imprisonment of dissent of Alexei Navalny. Now basically this was a person, a Russian diplomat that has been arrested in America. So these are some areas where both the countries are facing issues. So what is the implication of India-Russia relation on the world parallelly with USA in the timeline? So there is at present there is a difference of groups or two poles which are standing today. On one end, the pole is Quad, where you have India, US, Australia and Japan, and on the other hand you have the RCP nexus, that is Russia, China, Pakistan coming closer and closer. And then they are trying to include Afghanistan and Iran because both the countries are anti-US. So if this thing happens, you imagine the scenario of Asia, Europe, and then link it with the world. Then stability in Afghanistan. Now, to bring in stability in Afghanistan, basically Pakistan is acting as a broker. Okay. And they are bringing the world powers and ignoring India in the heart of Asia, that is Afghanistan. So this is another implication of India-Russia relationship. And then Pakistan very recently has started selling arms to Pakistan. Oh, sorry, Russia has started selling arms to Pakistan. This is another concern for India. Then support at the global platforms. Like Russia is traditionally supporting India on the Kashmir issue. Till now, they are supporting us. But as you know, that Russia and China are getting close, and then Pakistan is also getting close. It is not very surprising that in future Russia withdraw their support from the Kashmir issue. So at present, the P5 nations, all 5 permanent members at United States Security Council, that includes France, China, Russia, UK, US, all have been divided now. On one end, you have P2 countries, that is Russia and China, and the other countries are the US, UK, and France. So, because of this struggle, even the global world order is changing. Then connectivity. RCP, that means Russia, China, Pakistan, and Iran axis can endanger India's connectivity project that we are building in Chabar and INSTC, International North-South Transport Corridor. So all our investment in Afghanistan or our investment in Chabar, Iran. So for example, if you remember investments in Afghanistan, we have Delaram Zehranj Road, Salma Dam, then Setut Dam, Afghani Parliament. All these things are being constructed in Afghanistan with the help of India. And then in Iran, we have developed Chabar. We have put our investment in Chabar, which is an open seaport. So their nexus, RCP nexus with Iran, with Pakistan, with Afghanistan, Indian investments can further get impacted in, or Indian connectivity will further get impacted in Russia or in Central Asia, sorry. Then stability in Middle East. Now Russia is always supporting those regimes which are anti-US. Like in Syria, the government is held by Bashar al-Assad. Now Bashar al-Assad is majorly a Shia belonging to a Shia community, and his government and the other people are also Shia, whereas the rebels in the Syria are from the Sunni region or the Sunni people. So Russia is supporting the government there, Bashar al-Assad, whereas other countries like US is supporting the rebellions. So this kind of confrontation is again a problem for India. And then guys, both the countries have withdrawn their arms treaties, strategic treaties. They have finalized this agreement to extend the New START treaty. Under this New START treaty, they will limit their stockpiles on nuclear weapon. This treaty imposes limits on Russia and US intercontinental ballistic missile. That means according to New START treaty, both the countries will not make any further development of nuclear weapons and intercontinental ballistic missiles. That means the deadly weapons. So this is your new arms treaty and another implication for India. Then Russia-Ukraine war. This war is again getting aggressive as Russia is facing a military coup right now. So you never know that in what direction this Ukraine war will turn, and you never know that there is a question on this same line that can be asked in the mains this year. So let a little background of the Russia-Ukraine war so that you can revise and if there is a question on this war, you can add that in your in any form of paragraph, maybe in a question. So this war started on 24th Feb last year, 2022, where Russian troops have captured many Ukrainian cities like Mariupol, Kherson, Kharkiv, and Sumy, then Odessa. These kind of places they have captured. Now, what is the reason for this war? Because Ukraine was, was about to sign their association agreement with NATO. So Ukraine was allowing US forces to be stationed in Ukraine, which is just next to, the neighborhood of Russia. So this is another issue that this Ukraine war has started. This was the main reason why it has started. What are the other reasons that led to the conflict? First of all, both Russia and Ukraine had a shared history. Like the eastern part of Ukraine has more Russian dominant people. That means they share the cultural ties with Russia, family links with Russia. They are Russian speaking people. Whereas the western part of Ukraine are more closer to the European part. That means the English culture, the Christianity culture, that Europe is there. So because of this, there was conflict in Ukraine and Russia tried to take over that conflict. By the way, Ukraine was once was a part of USSR only. Then there is a emotional exploitation of the people. Like for many Russians, they are much more closer to the ethnic areas of Russia. That means they have their old legacy in Russia. So they will tend to the policies, or they will incline towards the policies of the Russian government. And then ever since the Ukrainian split from the Soviet Union, both Russia and West have weighed a greater influence in the country. Both have tried to gain their influence in Ukraine. Like America has keep on trying to get into Ukraine. Similarly, Russia has never allowed any foreign player to establish their strong foothold in Ukraine. And also, Ukraine act as a buffer. It act as a buffer between America and Russia, between European Union and Russia, and mostly every part of almost each country of European Union presently have joined NATO. So it is a direct threat to the Russia and the Russian interest in Ukraine. And if you have done your world history, the warm water policy, Russia is doing this. Why? Because of the warm water policy. The major reason that Russia is attacking Ukraine is that they want to get access to the warm waters. What is the warm water? The Black Sea, the Mediterranean Sea. Why not the other waters? Because most of the northern access, most of the northern regions which have access to the open seas in Russia are frozen 365 days. वो जमे रहते हैं 365 दिन सारे ports रशिया के जमे रहेंगे. So the only option that Russia has is the access in the water, in the warm water of Mediterranean and Black Sea. Then on this Russia-Ukraine war, there was a ICJ ruling. The case has been filed in International Court of Justice with the vote of 13:2. That means there are total 15 judges. 2 favored Russia and 13 have voted against the Russia. So with Vice President Kirill Gavrogian of Russia and Judge Zui Hanqing of China, they are the one who has given their ruling for Russia, whereas all other judges have been sided, and they have declared this, they held this, that Russia should immediately suspend the military operation that are commenced on 24th, from 24th of February. So although ICJ's verdicts are binding, but you will see that nobody abide by the ruling. Like the similar ruling came against China as well in the South China Sea. In the South China Sea, a similar ruling has been came against China, but presently everyone ignores the importance, or there is no importance left of all these international old agencies like UN and all. Majorly, all the countries are right now focusing on the regional cooperation or some intergovernmental groups that they are part of. Then, what are the stand of various major powers on Russia-Ukraine war? So G7 nations, that includes all top nations of the world, they have condemned Russia's invasion. That means they are against it. They have imposed sanctions. Many countries have imposed sanctions against Russia, which include US, European Union, UK, Australia, Canada, and Japan. Most of these countries are part of G7, and if they are not part of G7, they are one or the other way allies of USA. Then China has rejected the calling of Russia's move on Ukraine and urged the sides to exercise the restraint. So China acted as a mediator. Then India did not join the Western powers. India played a neutral role. Then very recently, guys, India has abstained from voting on a US sponsored resolution in Security Council to deplore against the Russian invasion in Ukraine. However, India abstained from voting. India didn't participate in voting, and it was supported by China as well as UAE. Then guys, let us analyze what is India's position in this complete game. So India, on one hand, India wants to have a good relation with US. On the other hand, India wants to maintain a cordial relation with its one of the oldest friend, Russia. So India in most of the occasions have not voted at all. So if India would have voted no for the resolution, then it is also wrong in the international domain. अगर इंडिया वोट नहीं करता रेजोल्यूशन पर, तो सारे डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज और वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज बोलते इंडिया इज साइडिंग विद रशिया, एंड इंडिया अगर वोट करता तो रशिया हमारे से नाराज हो जाता. सो इन दिस सिनेरियो इंडिया chose to abstain from the voting. Now, despite the abstention, India has highlighted the principle of UN Charter, where we indirectly have given this message to Russia that everyone should respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the states. So in a way, we have showed that we do not support any kind of war. What we support is a global peace, a global order which is driven by peace and equality. And then India always promotes that talking is the solution with which we can solve the problems. So in the evolving of global order, there are three main powers right now: US, Russia and China. India on one hand has a rivalry with China. On the other hand, we are the partner with the two. So India in this case should remain neutral. India ki what foreign policy that India should have followed? A policy of the middle path, the neutrality that we have always kept in our foreign policy. So we continued with that policy in the Russia Ukraine war. हमने रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर में ना ही रशिया का हमने अगेंस्ट बोला, ना ही रशिया के फेवर में बोला. So we kept it as a neutral. However, many countries have demanded that India could have act as a mediator. Like abstaining India has kept a space for a dialogue and diplomacy without taking any sides. Right? So what is the way forward between Russia and India relation? First of all, we have to transform our partnership from the earlier century to this new century. We have to increase our cooperation in the field of energy, defense, in the field of trade, connectivity and other areas. Then we have to develop our relations so that we both the countries can balance the China's aggression, the China's influence, not only just in Central Asia but in the different parts of the world. Now for both the countries, for this to happen, to balance China, both the countries need to work together with China and against China. Like with China we can work with China in SCO, and then against China we can work by developing the mutual cooperation. Then the Arctic politics. Now India can work with countries like Japan, South Korea in the Far East Asian region so that we can contain the Chinese influence in the Arctic region or in the Far East region of Russia. So this is how we can counter China. Then what is further the way forward between India and Russia? Developing connectivity. How we can build up connectivity? We can increase the connectivity, like the stalled projects of international north-south transport corridor. We can look for what are the probable delays in this project, and we can try to solve the issues in international north-south corridor. And then India can act as a mediator to mediate between US and Russian tensions so that we can establish a multipolar stable order that is driven by peace, tranquility and recognizing the sovereignty over the territorial disputes of each nation. Then both the countries can further increase their cooperation by engaging in 2+2 dialogues. Like we are having this dialogue just like on the lines of USA, we are having this dialogue, 2+2 dialogue with Russia as well. So this is how we can build Indian-Russian relationship. Now guys, we are moving on to an important discussion on important international organizations. Okay, like we are moving into the third aspect of the international relations, the third topic, important international organization and their policies, how that policies impact India. So this is the last IR class. Next month or the next week, that is on the 1st of July or the 2nd of July, wherever, yeah, it is the 1st of July is on Saturday, next Saturday. I will be starting with environment and ecology, all important current affairs from environment and ecology, and in the month of July we will try to finish environment ecology. Okay, so moving ahead, the first, now there are two important organizations that we have to do, and there will be a question on these two organizations. One is India and G20, the other is SCO. So let us first discuss India and G20. So before beginning, now this session is basically to provide you those points that will help you to answer the question. Any question that comes on G20, you can answer it from the discussion that I am now starting. So any question on India and G20, first you have to begin with a little introduction that what is G20. So first of all, G20 was formed in 1999 after the Asian financial crisis. What is the relevance of G20 presently? G20 accounts for 80% of the global trade GDP. Global trade and GDP, almost 80% of the global trade and GDP accounts in these G20 nations. And if I say the population, around 70% of the global population lives in these 20 nations. 20 nations rather, it is 19 plus 1. So there are 19 nations plus European Union. So this G20 is a premier forum for international economic cooperation, because you know that how many countries are engaged together. So in order to play an important role in shaping and strengthening the global architecture, the economic architecture, the governance, all major international economic issues, G20 plays an important role. Because see, the value of UN and other international organizations like WTO, IMF, WHO, their importance these days are declining. Nobody is paying attention to all these organizations. So intergovernmental organization, regional organizations are coming up. Now it has expanded, the G20 has expanded its inter alia, that means the interconnections in the areas of trade, sustainable development, health, agriculture, energy, environment, climate, and anti-corruption. These are the areas they are working. Then what is the working mechanism of G20? Very important. G20 right now, G20 is presided by India. India is hosting G20's summit this year. The annual summit will start in September. However, there are many meetings that has happened on the sidelines of G20 this year. G20 is driven by Troika. Okay, Troika, which include a country that has hosted the G20 summit previously, that means previous year, 2022. The current country that has held the summit or that is going to host the summit this year, and the country that will host the summit the next year, the upcoming years. So Troika includes 3 countries, previous, current, and the next. So the Troika right now have Indonesia, India, and Brazil. So the summit for 2024 will take place in Brazil. And then what will be the agenda of G20? That how these countries will decide that what to discuss in G20 is decided by these Troikas only. So there are engagement groups which bring together all civil societies, parliamentarians, think tanks, women, youth, labor, business, researchers of G20 countries. And guys, there is no permanent headquarter of G20. So wherever there is the annual summit going on, that country act as the headquarter for that year. So the presidency and the secretariat changes every year. It changes every year. Okay. Now G20 consists of two parallel tracks, one financial track, the other Sherpa track. Now what do you mean by financial track? In this financial track, all the finance minister and the central government governors, central bank governors of all G20 nations, they come together to discuss the global macroeconomic issues. Like what are the issues that all the country members are facing. So it is represented by the finance ministers and the governors. So from our country, Jaishankar ji and Shaktikant Das ji will go, and they have already attended this financial tracks at many occasions this year. And then there is a Sherpa track. Sherpa is basically the person that will assist each country, or you can say he will be the representative of India in the G20 forum. And this Sherpa will coordinate with the Sherpas of the other countries to oversee the negotiations, like what all these countries are discussing, they are negotiating, etc., etc. So they will come to a conclusion after discussing all these things. And can you tell me that who is the present Sherpa of India? Can you guys tell me who is the Sherpa of India? Can you tell me in the comment box? Okay, moving ahead, let us see some factual information about India's presidency. So India has assumed G20 presidency on 1st December 2022. We have taken this presidency from Indonesia and will convene the G20 Leaders Summit for the first time in the country. That means G20 summit is happening in India for the first time. And then India seeks to play a very important role in this summit. And what is the theme for this summit? Vasudev Kutumbakam. Okay, Vasudev Kutumbakam from Manusmriti, which means world is one family. This is the theme for G20. Then what are the priorities set by Indian presidency? Like this year, what are the areas that we will have the discussion on? First, green development. So green development will include G20 action plan to accelerate the process on sustainable development goals. Okay, how we can develop actions so that we can have the green development around the globe. Then India has highlighted climate, finance, and life, like how these developing countries will get the access to finance uh, to introduce all those technologies that will help them to build a greener infrastructure. And then India will also work on lifestyle, life, lifestyle for environment. They will also build on life. Then accelerated inclusive and resilient growth. This is the next agenda. Technological transformation and digital public infrastructure. Now, what is digital public infrastructure? Basically, all those new modes that India is developing. Like India is working on UPI, India is working on accounts aggregators, then India's online unique identification card Aadhaar. Then a new system that India is working on is ONDC to democratize the e-commerce world. So in these areas, India wants that world to progress, at least these the 20 countries to progress. Then to work on women-led development. This is also the agenda of G20 presidency. So guys, try to learn, for all those people who are writing mains this year, try to learn all these priorities of India. Okay, then significance, how this presidency of G20 will help India. Now first, the role at a crucial time. Right now, India's leadership has come at a very crucial time. Why? Because right now the world is very much busy, or it is divided on one common conflict, the Russia-Ukraine war. Guys, am I audible now? Okay, I think I am audible. So we can start. So there was an internet disruption, guys. Anyways, the significance of the presidency of India. Okay, so what is the significance? How this G20 will help India? First of all, it will play a very important, crucial role on India's leadership, because the timing right now in the world is there where the world is divided into two blocks. One block of USA, which is supporting Ukraine, and the other very limited block where Russia and the others are getting the support from limited countries, majorly from China. So this important position and this important timing of India's G20 presidency is important. Okay? India can act as a mediator. Then on one end, the other part of this counterpart of G20 is the emergence of the global south. Like, what is global south? The group of all developing countries. The group of all developing countries. So India's presidency lies in Troika of Indonesia, Brazil, and other two countries of the global south. With three consecutive presidencies from the global south, it is a unique chance to address the concern that inhibit the development of the global south. So that means this south cooperation, that means the amalgamation of all developing countries and India, South Africa, India, Brazil, and Indonesia, they act as the voice of the global south, voice of all developing nations in the country. Then India can act as a global peacemaker, because India has a legacy of it enshrines in Indian legacy that we are the country that has never attacked anyone. We are the country of Mahatma Gandhi, non-violence. Okay, so then the next is disaster management. India's G20 can show the way the world can work on disaster risk reduction. Very recently, in the month of May, there was a G20 meeting on disaster risk reduction. By the way, I have discussed this in my monthly current affair course on the Plus, where we have covered this important aspect, that how disaster risk reduction is important. So guys, just to inform you that I take a monthly current affair course on Unacademy Plus platform, where all of you can come and join by using this code Sriram's IAS. So just use this code Sriram's. You can get access to all content that is taught in the Plus course, and you will get a flat 25% off with this subscription. Then guys, another significance of this presidency is the address of the global health challenges. Now, what are the global health challenges? Now, first of all, we have just come out with the COVID. It is in the post-COVID era, the countries are working to strengthen their resilience against the future pandemics. In this aspect, India can play an important role, because India can share its own digital health architecture. Like, India is a country that has delivered free vaccines to the world. Then guys, European Union cooperation. So in G20 there are 19 members plus one European Union. So how India can engage with this one partner which in itself include 27 nations. Okay, European Union के अंदर 27 nations आते हैं. So how India can use the platform of G20 and can increase the cooperation with the European Union countries. How it can help? If we have more partnership, if we can increase our partnership with European Union, it can help us to increase our commitments for these projects like North-South collaborations. Then it is also crucial for the BIMSTEC countries. India's G20 presidency is very much economically crucial for the BIMSTEC countries such as Bangladesh, Myanmar, because the existing Indian trade ties with these nations can help India to reach the Northeast. It can help India to work on its neighborhood first policy, act east foreign policy. Okay? Then what are the other contributions that India can have? In this G20 summit, India has proposed to add African Union, because from Africa in G20 only one nation is a member, and that is South Africa. And that is South Africa. So India wants that this unique developmental imperatives of G20 can reach the African landmass. Then India is working on the ethos of Jan Bhagidari, that is people's participation. That is people's participation. Now this thing has underpinned India's presidency's effort to take the G20 in its idea, so that which include, now how G20 makes its idea more inclusive, like we include youth, we include women, we include businesses, we include civil society. So the idea of the civil participation in governance, the idea of Jan Bhagidari in governance is part and parcel of Indian administration. Then how G20 is successful? Because we believe in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, where we are guided by the principle of one earth, one family and one future, where we see world as one common family. So G20 has, this presidency of G20 has worked to further have a global good and create a better planet. This is said by none other than the PM of India. Then this will help India to strengthen its stand on Kashmir. Like we have held many such meetings in Kashmir only. Like India's bold geopolitics stand on Kashmir and the destination for TWG's, the third working group, the working group's third meeting held with the G20 dignitaries in Kashmir only. The target was to even boost tourism in Kashmir. Then India's advocacy for the emergence of Global South. This I have already explained you in the previous slide. Global South basically talks about all the developing countries. All the developing countries. This represents the Global South. Moving on to the next important organization is G7. G7 is also important, guys. Why? Because first of all, in G7, India is not a member, but India is being invited to G7 nations from past 4 to 5 years, we are continuously attending this G7 nation. Like all the G7 nations, first let me tell you what is a G7 nation and then I will elaborate. Now G7 is a intergovernmental group. It is an informal group of the world's most advanced economies. This G7 at one time was G8. ये कभी G8 हुआ करता था. In 2014, when Russia attacked Crimea, so they expelled Russia from this. So G7 becomes G8 becomes G7. So what all economies just this G7 includes? Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, US, and European Union. Okay, so European Union is also the member of G7, which has been added very recently. So G7 provides global leadership and serves as a powerful catalyst on the issue that are later taken up by the other people or the other organization, which are broader and which can further reach in regional memberships. So all these important countries are part of many regional organizations, so they can deliver their agendas in those regional organizations. Then these G7 nations, since they are the most advanced countries in the world, ये दुनिया के सबसे डेवलप्ड नेशंस में से एक है. So their economy, their global trend, their decisions can impact the globe. So that is why their importance is they are important for the global discussions. Then these G7 nations have strengthened their international cooperation and security policies, advanced decisions of global issues including climate change, global gender equality, and then they have also brought the donors together and supported disarmament. Now why this was in news? Because very recently G7's annual summit has happened. The 49th annual summit has happened in Japan, Hiroshima. Okay, Hiroshima has witnessed the annual summit. So what is India's participation in G7? India is almost looking like a permanent member of G7. We are attending this as a permanent guest country regularly from 2019. So 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. This is the 5th year that we are attending G7. Then India is playing a very important role as a link between the industrialized countries and the developing country. We stand in the middle. Then India's participation in G7 proves that India is a responsible, democratic, great power, but not a brutal authoritarian power like China. We are a responsible global power. We are not authoritarian. We do not suppress our neighbors. We do not suppress any other country in order to seek our own interest. Then India's participation in G7 will contribute to the global South countries. It will help the all developing nations which represent under one common head the global South. ठीक है, आजकल गाइस ये इस तरह की सेग्रीगेशन नहीं होती, लाइक डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज एंड डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज, दे डू नॉट टॉक ऑन दीज लाइंस. एक फिर उसके बाद चेंज हुआ, फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड कंट्री एंड द थर्ड वर्ल्ड कंट्री. फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड रिप्रेजेंट्स द डेवलप्ड कंट्री, थर्ड वर्ल्ड रिप्रेजेंट्स द डेवलपिंग कंट्री. बट अब ये नॉमेनक्लेचर चेंज हो चुका है. ग्लोबल नॉर्थ रिप्रेजेंट्स ऑल डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज, whereas the global south represents all developing countries at one common arena. So G7 points out increasing acceptance and recognition that India needs to be a part of, and every sustained effort to find a solution to solve the global challenges. Now, such a participation gives India the insight into linking of major countries on current issues or of international concerns. Then, guys, why can be a formal member? Why India can be a formal member of G7? What are the arguments that you can write in support of this? Now, first, rising India's influence and responsibility to the world, and the fact that G7 cannot ignore India's opinion. India has a, a image in the world. India has a dominance in the world, and that dominance cannot be ignored by anyone. Then India stands third in the world when it comes to the defense expenditure. India's GDP is similar to that of the UK and higher than France, Italy, and Canada. We have very recently taken over and become the fifth largest economy in the world. Then the world needs a responsible greater power like India instead of China. Then inclusion of India reflects the importance of global south to the G7. It reflects how developing countries can contribute to the G7 nations. This year, 49th summit of G7 has happened. It has happened in Japan, Hiroshima. What are the major outline of the G7 summit? The first is that G7 nations has come out with a climate wish list. That how continuous rise of the climate change, the continuous rise of the temperature is worsening the state of climate change in the world. Then this summit, this 49th summit, the Prime Minister of India has unveiled a bust of Mahatma Gandhi in Hiroshima. What is a bust? It is a statue of Mahatma Gandhi in Hiroshima. Now, additionally, Quad Leaders Summit also took place on the sidelines of the G7 summit. That means the members of Quad countries also met on the sidelines of this summit. Then, what are the main climate wish list of G7 nations? What all G7 nations has come out with in order to showcase their climate wish list? The first is that they will peak their emissions by 2025. That means whatever rate that they are increasing their emissions, They will peak it by 2025 and thereafter they will work on reducing the global emissions. However, the peaking of global emissions are not mandated under the Paris Agreement. Okay, so the developed countries are witnessing a decline in emissions. All the developed countries are showing the decline in emissions, but the rate at which the emission should drop is not sufficient to meet the climate targets that was set up in the Paris Agreement. Now, if all the countries fulfill their existing commitments, the emission in 2030 would be about 11% higher than the 2010 level. Then, what are the other wish lists? First of all, they will further end the use of fossil fuel. The target to end the use of fossil fuel and phase out unabated fossil fuel. Now, what do you mean by unabated fossil fuel? It is basically untreated fossil fuel, like the use of coal directly. Okay, the use of coal directly is unabated. Like if you use it in a technological manner so that the emission is less, that is the abated coal. Whereas unabated means you are using the coal or any other fossil fuel indirectly. Like for example, using the old petrol car and diesel cars is a kind of a unabated fossil fuel. Whereas if you use the petrol in the present hybrid cars, it is a kind of abated fossil fuel because there the emissions are very less. So the G7 nation aims to eliminate inefficient fossil fuel subsidies by 2025. They target to come out of giving inefficient fossil fuel subsidies by 2025. That means not to promote any fossil fuel anymore after 2025. Okay, this is their target. Then the next target is the net zero. The G7 nations, they reiterates their commitments to achieve the net zero status by 2050. Okay, so all G7 will result into a net zero by the year 2050. Then the world as a whole must become a net zero by the mid-century so that they can meet this target. So all major players in the world right now, they have a net zero target at 2050. China has a net zero target by 2060, whereas India has a net zero target of 2070. Now guys, what do you mean by net zero? Let us very quickly understand this, where the total emissions are not zero, but the total net emissions are zero. That means, for example, we are doing certain emissions and then we are building some technologies which can absorb the emission, So net emission does not mean zero emission. First of all, net emission does not mean zero emission, whereas net emission means that whatever emission you are making, you have the technology to absorb that emission so that the net result is zero. Net addition is zero in the economy. This is what net zero targets means. Okay, so either you keep on increasing the use of fossil fuel, but simultaneously you develop a technology that can absorb the emissions from the nature. So the net result that you will get is zero emission. Okay, this is net zero. Then insufficient action and inconsistency. Now all these G7 nations, they are quite inconsistent in meeting their target. Like each country has their nationally determined contributions. Like India also has nationally determined contributions, and there are 5 such contributions. Out of these 5, India has already achieved our targets that has been set in NDC. जो हमने टारगेट NDC में सेट करे थे वो हमने अचीव कर लिए ऑलरेडी, एंड देन वी हैव रिवाइज्ड दोज टारगेट्स. सो क्या आप मुझे बता सकते हो कमेंट बॉक्स में कि वो NDC टारगेट्स हमारे क्या हैं? व्हाट आर दोज 5 NDC टारगेट्स? Like for example, to create a 1 billion ton of carbon sink by 2030, to increase the carbon intensity in the economy by 45%. ठीक है, to railway will be net zero by 2030. हमारी रेलवे net zero emissions पर चलेगी by 2030. Okay, so lack of sufficient and consistency that align with the Paris target, जो हमारे 1.5 डिग्री के टारगेट्स हैं उनके साथ जो प्रेजेंट कमिटमेंट्स है G7 नेशंस की, वो अभी इट इज नॉट एप्ट. अगर इसी तरीके से G7 नेशंस काम करते रहे, वी वोंट बी एबल टू मीट द चैलेंज ऑफ कंट्रोलिंग द एवरेज टेम्परेचर बाय 1.5 डिग्री सेल्सियस. ठीक है. Then what are the challenges of implementing G7 climate wish list? What are the challenges? First, inadequate climate financial support. These G7 nations are not getting enough support. They all are struggling to get the finances. ये सबसे बड़ा challenge है. Then continued reliance on the fossil fuel. Even today, the G7 nation has a large contribution in the fossil fuel. Okay, there is a large contribution in fossil fuel. They are still using coal, they are still using petrol, diesel, and all these type of fossil fuels, natural gas. So when we will move out from these fossil fuel, it is the next question. Okay. So Oil Change International highlights that G7 nation provides significant public finance for fossil fuels. They are promoting fossil fuel. They give easy loans, subsidies to fossil fuel, and their subsidy is at times surpassing the investments in clean energy. That means how much they are contributing in clean energy and how much they are contributing in fossil fuel. They are contributing more in fossil fuel. Okay, then guys, the one more thing that has happened in G7 summit is that it has brought India closer culturally to all G7 nations. How we have come closer? Because Narendra Modi has unveiled Mahatma Gandhi ji's bust in Hiroshima. Now what do you mean by bust? It is a half statue. Can you see? This is a bust. So why Mahatma Gandhi is important? First of all, Mahatma Gandhi is important for your exam. The principle of Mahatma Gandhi, the ideas of Mahatma Gandhi still exist in UPSC. So they can ask question on these lines. So how you can answer it? Like Mahatma Gandhi is the most prominent leader of 20th century. They basically champion the principle of non-violence, peace, justice, and human dignity. He is the ideal of all these principles. Now his statue has been unveiled at Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park. Now Hiroshima, we all know, it is the site where that bombing has happened, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now basically it is a kind of a tribute, a legacy reminder to his relevance in today's world. And this idea of G7 and Mahatma Gandhi will further highlight India's commitment to nuclear disarmament and nuclear non-proliferation. India believes in that the world today do not need nuclear weapons. The world today there is no need to spread the nuclear technology. Then why did this has happened? Further, it is to acknowledge the suffering and resilience of Hibakusha. Now, what is Hibakusha? Hibakusha are basically the survivals of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So उनके resilience को दिखाने के लिए ये महात्मा गांधी का स्टैचू G7 के समिट में इस साल लगाया गया. एंड देन ऑब्वियसली इससे क्या फायदा होगा इंडिया का? इट विल recognize India's role and contribution to global peace and security. And then it will further increase India's partnership with Japan on various issues, including climate change. Okay, so many other leaders have joined India in this ceremony. Next summit or next international organization that we will do, and this organization is also very important for the mains exam 23, is India and SCO. Okay, so let us first understand what is SCO. Let us first understand what is SCO. So SCO is an intergovernmental regional organization that promotes cooperation between its members in the area of security, economy and culture. SCO basically was initially formed by China to tackle the border dispute between all Central Asian countries. ये इस मकसद से बनाया गया था, to tackle the dispute with all Central Asian countries. Okay, so China is a country which is involved in disputes, border disputes, along with land plus maritime border with 18 nations. At present 18 देशों के साथ चाइना का border dispute है, and it is a country that is in our neighborhood. It is that kind of country which has a problem with almost everyone. Every neighborhood, आपके आसपास भी एक ऐसा neighborhood होगा, ऐसे अंकल होंगे जिनको हर चीज से खुजली रहती है. Okay, so China is that uncle of our neighborhood. Now prior to the creation of SCO, it was known as Shanghai 5. SCO बनने से पहले ये Shanghai 5 था. In 2001, when Uzbekistan joined Shanghai 5, it became SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And then later on, in India and Pakistan becomes its members in 2017, and this year Iran has joined SCO for the first time, and the total members have increased to 9. The total members have increased to 9. Is it clear? Then guys, why this Shanghai Cooperation Organization was in news? First of all, इस साल India holds the chairmanship of SCO, and आज से ठीक एक हफ्ते में नेक्स्ट वीक 2 जुलाई से SCO का समिट शुरू हो रहा है. So this makes SCO very much important for this year. So any important discussion happening in SCO becomes important for you. Now the first thing is SCO and the development of country's digital public infrastructure. All the SCO members have agreed to join India's digital public infrastructure. Now what is this digital public infrastructure? पहले मैं आपको बताता हूं कि ये DPI क्या है. It stands for the digital identification, payment infrastructure and data exchange solutions that has been developed in India. Like for example, इंडिया में डिजिटली क्या क्या रिफॉर्म्स हुए हैं जो कि एक वर्ल्ड क्लास लेवल पर है और पूरा वर्ल्ड उसको कॉपी करना चाहता है. पहला है हमारा डिजिटल आइडेंटिटी, अ यूनिक आइडेंटिटी दैट वी हैव क्रिएटेड फॉर ऑल आवर सिटीजन्स. द यूनिक आइडेंटिटी दैट वी हैव क्रिएटेड एंड दैट इज द आधार, द यूनिक आइडेंटिफिकेशन नंबर. देन इंडियाज यूपीआई. इस बड़े लेवल पर जो रियल टाइम ट्रांजैक्शन इंडिया में हो रहा है, डिजिटल ट्रांजैक्शन, इट इज हैपनिंग नोवेयर इन द वर्ल्ड. देन अकाउंट्स एग्रीगेटर. लाइक अकाउंट्स एग्रीगेटर में आपने सुना होगा द पेमेंट गेटवेज दैट अलाउज इंडियन बैंक्स टू ट्रांसफर द मनी from one bank to another or from one individual to some individual. This is possible because of the presence of account aggregator. ये भी डिजिटली इंडिया में ही डेवलप किया गया है. जैसे इंडिया का एक गेटवे प्लेटफॉर्म रूपे. अब ये रूपे आपके बहुत सारे कंट्रीज में शुरू हो गया है. सऊदी, यूएई, ठीक है, ओमान, इन सब कंट्रीज ने रूपे को एक्सेप्ट कर लिया है एज अ प्लेटफॉर्म फॉर गेटवे ऑफ the online transaction. Then other than this, अभी एक नया चीज इस डिजिटल पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में, एक नई चीज जो आई है वो है ONDC, द ऑनलाइन नेटवर्क ऑफ डोमेस्टिक कॉमर्स, जहां पर सारे ऑनलाइन ई कॉमर्स प्लेटफॉर्म्स को एक कॉमन गेटवे गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से मिलेगा. द आइडिया इज टू डेमोक्रेटाइज द ई कॉमर्स इंडस्ट्री. ये भी इंडिया के डिजिटल पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का पार्ट है. ONDC आपने सुना भी होगा. ONDC का भी इस साल पेपर में आने के बहुत हाई चांसेस हैं. ठीक है, देयर इज अ वेरी हाई चांस दैट ONDC कैन बी आस्क्ड इन द एग्जाम. देन अच्छा, बिफोर दिस you should also know that what is the structure of SEO. SEO के अंदर एक हेड्स ऑफ काउंसिल है. हेड्स ऑफ काउंसिल का काम है सारी इंटरनल फंक्शनिंग को देखना. देन एक हेड्स ऑफ गवर्नमेंट काउंसिल है. इट विल अप्रूव द बजट, फाइनेंशियल इश्यूज, इकोनॉमिक्स फेयर्स के जो भी इश्यूज हैं वो हेड्स ऑफ गवर्नमेंट काउंसिल में काम होता है. देन देयर इज अ काउंसिल ऑफ फॉरेन अफेयर मिनिस्टर्स. फॉरेन अफेयर्स, basically all foreign affair ministers, they have a one common platform in SEO. Now the most important aspect of SEO is RATS, Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure. ये बेसिकली SEO का एक खुद का इनिशिएटिव है टू कॉम्बैट टेररिज्म, सेपरेटिज्म एंड एक्सट्रीमिज्म. तो बेसिकली चाइना ने इसको मूट करा है सो दैट चाइना अपने यहां पर सेंट्रल एशियन कंट्रीज से जो एक्सट्रीमिस्ट आइडियोलॉजी है और वो सारा एक्सट्रीमिज्म है उसके स्प्रेड को रोक सके. बिकॉज इफ यू नो दैट द वेस्टर्न चाइना Xinjiang province, the Xinjiang province, it touches or it shares the border with all Central Asian countries like Pakistan, Tajikistan, तुर्कमेनिस्तान, उज्बेकिस्तान. इन सब से ये बॉर्डर शेयर करता है और ये सारी मुस्लिम कंट्रीज हैं. सो एंड इस एरिया में चाइना इज प्रोसिक्यूटिंग द उग्यार्स मुस्लिम्स. उग्यार्स का प्रोसिक्यूशन कर रहा है. तो ताकि एक्सट्रीमिज्म वहां पर ना फैले इसलिए एक दिखावा है एससीओ का, रैट्स, रीजनल एंटी टेररिज्म स्ट्रक्चर. बट यू कैन कोट दिस, आप इसे एससीओ के किसी भी क्वेश्चन में कोट कर सकते हो. इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट. सो अंडर द इंडियाज डिजिटल पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर मैंने आपको बता ही दिया कि SEO members are also interested in copying this. ठीक है, under this what they will do, they will develop UPIs, digital lockers, digi lockers, application performing interfaces, ये सब they will accept. Then how this will benefit the SEO countries? They will offer them a model of developing their own DPIs. ये उनको हेल्प करेगा ताकि वो अपने डिजिटल पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स बना सके. ताकि एससीओ मेंबर्स के बीच में जो कनेक्टिविटी है, जो ट्रेड है, टूरिज्म है, एजुकेशन है, हेल्थ है, वो इंप्रूव हो सके इस पूरे रीजन में, ताकि एससीओ मेंबर कंट्रीज कैन फाइट द डिजिटल डिवाइड, द साइबर थ्रेट्स, डेटा प्रोटेक्शन, प्राइवेसी, डिजिटल एरा. They can work in these dimensions. ठीक है. Then guys, how SEO is important for India? India क्या क्या significance है? The good cordial relation with SEO gives the entry of India into Eurasia. India को entry मिलती है Eurasia में. Then it helps India to balance China and Pakistan at an international forum, because in this India can engage with their old relations with Iran, Russia, that can confront China and other Pakistan nexus. They can neutralize this China-Pakistan nexus. Then SEO can help us to build connectivity and infrastructure development. Like India can develop connectivity with the SEO countries, Eurasian Economic Union, through international north-south transport corridor. It will allow India to contribute to the regional connectivity projects so that they can harness the benefit of improved transportation networks, so that more transport, more trade can happen between India and SEO countries. And then it will give India a kind of protection. कैसी protection मिलेगी? That it will give an opportunity to start with global and regional counter-terrorism efforts to fight, combat the illicit drug trade which is happening. So इन सब से fight करने में इंडिया को हेल्प मिलेगी. एंड ऑल्सो इट विल इंक्रीज इंडियन जियोपॉलिटिकल इन्फ्लुएंस इन सेंट्रल एशिया. इंडिया का जियोपॉलिटिकल इन्फ्लुएंस साउथ एशिया और साउथ ईस्ट एशिया में तो है, साउथ ईस्ट एशिया में भी है, बट सेंट्रल एशिया में चाइना का डोमिनेंस और रशिया का डोमिनेंस बहुत ज्यादा है. सो इट विल हेल्प टू काउंटर बैलेंस दैट. Okay, I guess guys my slide got stuck. Now it is working. So India and Quad, I hope यू कैन हियर मी? हाँ, आवाज आ रही है अब। सो इंडिया एंड क्वाड, नेक्स्ट ग्रुप जो हम पढ़ रहे हैं आज के डिस्कशन का, दैट इज इंडिया एंड क्वाड। सो दिस क्वाड, या जिसको क्वाड्रिलैटरल सिक्योरिटी डायलॉग भी बोलते हैं, ये एक स्ट्रेटेजिक ग्रुप है 4 बड़े डेमोक्रेटिक नेशंस का, विच इंक्लूड यूएस, जापान, ऑस्ट्रेलिया एंड इंडिया। Now this was formed first time in 2007, but इस टाइम पर this idea was given by Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, जो अब इस दुनिया में नहीं रहे, he got assassinated. Shinzo Abe came up with this idea in 2007, but Australia was not that eager to join Quad back then. उस टाइम पर ऑस्ट्रेलिया इंटरेस्टेड नहीं था क्वाड को ज्वाइन करने में, बिकॉज ऑफ देयर इन्वॉल्वमेंट विद चाइना। दे आर इवन टुडे दे आर डिपेंडेंट ऑन चाइना, बट उस टाइम पर और ज्यादा था। ओके, सो व्हाट आर द ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ क्वाड? द मेजर ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ क्वाड इज टू डेवलप अ स्ट्रेटेजिक एंड सिग्निफिकेंट सी रूट इन द इंडो पैसिफिक रीजन, ताकि आपका इंडो पैसिफिक रीजन कैन बी फ्री फ्रॉम एनी इन्फ्लुएंस। ओके, ताकि चाइना यहां पर डोमिनेट ना कर सके और कोई कंट्री यहां पर डोमिनेट ना कर सके, सो दैट वी हैव अ फ्री मूवमेंट ऑफ ट्रेड हैपनिंग इन इंडो पैसिफिक रीजन। देन टू सिक्योर रूल बेस्ड ग्लोबल ऑर्डर, सो दैट अ लिबरल ट्रेडिंग सिस्टम एंड देयर इज अ फ्रीडम ऑफ नेविगेशन। ठीक है, ताकि लोगों के बीच में ट्रेड आसान से हो सके, फ्रीडम ऑफ नेविगेशन रहे। ठीक है, एंड देन टू वर्क अगेंस्ट द प्रिपेडरी ट्रेड एंड इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी, प्रीडेटरी ट्रेड एंड इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी, यानी ऐसे ट्रेड्स जो कि औरों को ट्रेड करने से रोकते हो, अपना ऑब्जेक्टिव पूरा करने में विश्वास रखते हो, ऐसे ट्रेड को रोकना। एंड देन द लास्ट is to offer financial help to the nations with debt in the Indo-Pacific region. Then importance of Quad for the members. What are the importance of Quad? First, enhancing regional security. इस पूरे portion में, और you can say the Western Pacific Ocean और the Eastern Asia, यहाँ पर रीजनल सिक्योरिटी बहुत ज्यादा हैम्पर है। लाइक चाइना इज गेटिंग एग्रेसिव विद ऑल द नेशंस इन साउथ चाइना सी, एंड ऑन कंट्रेरी यू विल सी दैट अमेरिका इज ऑल्सो assisting all these nations, like their friendly nation territories. Starting from the north, you have Japan, then South Korea, then Philippines, then Taiwan, Indonesia, and all these countries. So basically, America is also gaining its importance by supporting all these countries. They are conducting joint military exercises. Now, in order to have a more regional security, all Quad members are having or aiming at joint military exercises, and the name of the exercise is Exercise Malabar. ये मालाबार, गल्फ ऑफ मन्नार के पास ये एक्सरसाइज बाय एनुअली होती थी, अब इसकी फ्रीक्वेंसी और ज्यादा बढ़ गई है। सो द ऑब्जेक्टिव इज सो दैट इस पूरे रीजन में, इंडियन ओशन एंड पैसिफिक रीजन में, वी कैन टैकल मैरीटाइम सिक्योरिटी, टेररिज्म, नॉन प्लॉरिफरेशन ऑफ वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन, एटसेट्रा। देन प्रमोटिंग फ्री एंड ओपन इंडो पैसिफिक, ताकि नॉट एनी कंट्री कैन कंट्रोल द movement of sea traffic, so that sea traffic can, or the ships can move without any hindrance according to the international law, respecting the sovereignty of the other nations and giving the freedom of navigation. Then इसके अलावा क्वाड का क्या इंपॉर्टेंस है? टू इंक्रीज इकोनॉमिक कोऑपरेशन एंड डेवलपमेंट, सो दैट ये चारों देश अपनी स्ट्रैटेजीज को कॉमन करते हुए They can improve their investment, they can improve their connectivity, they can support the infrastructure in each other's country, they can work on a common agenda, that is environmental protection, etc. Then humanitarian assistance and disaster response. Both the countries, or all four countries, are pooling their resources, they are dutching their resources and expertise and capabilities to give humanitarian assistance for all the disasters happening in this region. Which region? Indian Ocean region plus Indo-Pacific region. Then all the four countries are the top democracies of the world. All the four countries are the top democracies of the world, so they should have a common value system that will protect the democratic values and human rights in the complete Indo-Pacific region. So they want to promote all these three principles in Indo-Pacific region, that is the democratic values, human rights, and rule of law. And rule of law. So they want to promote all these things. Then counterbalance to China. Like how the Quad is basically perceived as to tackle China, because in Indo-Pacific region and Indian Ocean region and Indo-Pacific or the Pacific Sea, one country that is hindering the trade, the access, is China. So Quad is perceived as a mechanism to collectively ascertain China or to stop China. This is what they are targeting. Exactly, they are doing this only, and when China is also perceiving it, but both the parties are denying each other's claim. That China says that I'm not hindering the any kind of movement of navigation here, so there is no need of Quad. Whereas all these four nations, they never say that we are forming this alliance because of you. Okay, so it is vice versa. So the Quad countries, through their joint naval exercises and patrols, they affirm the commitment on upholding the international law, freedom of navigation, and serving as a deterrent to any attempts by China and to restrict the access to the international water. Then Quad countries have recognized the need for resilient and diversified supplies chain, especially critical sectors such as technology, pharmaceuticals, and rare earth metal. Okay, so they are diversifying their supply so that they can help in prospering each other. Then what are the issue? The issue is right now, despite all these four nations are fighting China, they have a high dependency on China. Right now, 38% of the Australian exports are to China. China is the biggest trading partner of all Quad members. India, you look at India, now what not we are bringing from China? Everything is Chinese. Then what are the different capabilities and capacities? Like all these four members have different military and economic resources. There is a lack of consensus among the members regarding the role and responsibility of the members. Like what role the military will play or their economic resource will play in the region, it is not clear, because right now Quad is in a developing stage. It is increasing their presence and dominance in the region. So the roles and their capabilities and how to manage their responsibilities is not decided as of now. Then different priorities. So India's focus on Indian Ocean region, and the other three members are they are focused on the Pacific Ocean. Okay, each has their own priority. Like India will focus on Indian Ocean region because that is more important for us. The other three, Australia, Japan and US, they will focus on Pacific Ocean. And then the naming dilemma. So the members are reluctant to name China as the major strategic adversary due to the huge economic interdependence. Even they are fighting against China, but nobody is declaring China as an adversary to this quad or the quad countries. They are not declaring it as a strategic adversaries. Okay, because all the nations are dependent on China. This even China knows. So what is the way forward here? The way forward is the centrality of ASEAN. Now in between you have Quad in South Asia, and you have China in East Asia. In between you have Southeast Asia, where which group dominates? ASEAN. Then there is something known as Quad Plus. So Quad Plus will now include other members. Now if we expand the membership of Quad, this will further try to tackle, or it will try to maintain the balance with countries like China. So the Quad Plus can include Vietnam, New Zealand, South Korea and all these countries. Okay, then deepen our security cooperations, like we can enhance our security through more joint military exercises, more information sharing, data sharing, and then more dialogues. Then addressing the non-traditional security challenges. Now what do you mean by non-traditional security challenges? Means that you can address, or they can work together in areas like climate change, maritime security, cyber threats, public health crisis, etc., etc. Okay, so they can work on these areas. So that's it guys, we will stop here for this week. I am coming up with the environment and ecology current affairs starting from next week. Next Saturday we will have a class. So just to remind you that every Saturday, me, that is Anshum Verma, I will be taking IR, environment, ecology and polity current affairs, and this session will go on till your mains. Okay, and Sanat sir will be taking science and tech, eco, economics, art and culture and other related stuff for the mains exam. So Sanat sir takes class on Sunday 10 to 12:30 and I take class on Saturday 10 to 12:30. I have already taken 3 sessions on IR, where all important bilateral relation, multilateral relation, etc. we have covered already. Okay, we have covered it already, and this was the third class. So you can find the playlist in the description box. You can get this PDF on the Telegram channel attached in the description. Okay, there is a Telegram channel attached in the description. You can download the PDF from there. It will be soon uploaded just after this class. Then if you are planning to take subscription with Sriram IAS at Unacademy, you can join us and take the subscription using this code Srirams, because with this code you will come directly under the mentorship of UPSC CSE 24 exam by our director Sriram sir himself, and you will get the comprehensive coverage for all the level of UPSC preparation, whether it is prelims, mains, interview. Then it includes all optional subjects as well. Like if you want to prepare for these mentioned optionals like sociology, PubAd, PSIR, economics, history, we have just added geography as well. So geography optional is also there. All right. So you can join us using this code Srirams. With this code, you will get a flat 25% off on all the subscription. Okay, a flat 25% off on all the subscription. So see you next week. Till then, do not forget to like this video and share this video among your